Hey there. Today I have some questions from Lucy Nelson. Okay, now here's question one. How do you think sex in a long-term relationship plays into the relationship as a whole, and how can a couple foster continued playfulness and intimacy in that realm? I think this is a question that's topical for everyone. Well, you're talking about long-term relationships, but I think to go back to where sex was first important, at the beginning of the relationship, I'm guessing. At the beginning, the purpose is sort of to completely bond and meld with the other person in as short a time as possible so that they break through from stranger to friend to family to something even closer than family, and then you're allowed to have kids and you want to protect each other because this intensity of chemical bonding has gone on. Now, I don't know if I'm the right person to be asking this to because I've never been in a relationship longer than the one I'm in now, which is at about a year and a half. So I don't believe that's considered long term, but I have been running into, I think, some of the problems that I'm guessing you're running into. This is a problem-laden question. Well, I mean, one thing that clearly comes to mind is that sex is still the physical joinder. I think in a romantic relationship, maybe you're seeking as many forms of union as possible, and sex is the place where you're most physically unionized. Don't be telling the boss. I'm pretty sure it's well established that in most long-term relationships, desire ebbs and flows, and that at times you'll become very bored by your partner, and you'll be seeking that drug elsewhere. You'll be seeking the dopamine elsewhere. And then after you forget your partner for long enough, you can come back to them in that way and they'll be a little bit more mysterious and you can be excited by them again. So I think by the point you're asking, how can we possibly stay intimate and playful, we can assume that you've lost the animal ease of it. You're already kind of making the concession that boredom has crept into the picture. And so it seems to me that the way forward is not necessarily to say, how can we get back just to that animal thing? Because if that were possible, it would already be happening. It seems that it can only be done through deliberateness and lots of sort of awkward, uncomfortable conversations. I mean, you'll probably like this, but to treat it more like dance, or to treat sex as an art form where you get to surprise each other and deliberately surprise each other. As to the how of that, I have no idea. I'm working on it. I'll let you know. But I do think that to bring it into some sort of more deliberate awareness, that you want it to become something more beautiful and exciting so that you can continue to have this physical union in a way that is deeply erotic. I believe that, I mean, that's one of the things that I think the arts are for, is to take some sort of natural instinct and essentially allow it to become infinite. The only difference here is that you have to have two people who are very comfortable doing weird things. Also, maybe don't worry about it so much. Okay, question 2. How does place influence a person? How important is place in one's personality and values? How do we relate to place and belonging now that we have such a transient and global population? This is a tough question. I think the older I get, the more I come to recognize that I love being an American, which I think is the opposite trend that most people I know are going through. But I think I have some conception of what other countries have been like and can be like, and I believe that I've had it pretty good. There's a kind of freedom and there's a kind of brazenness that is built into the American culture, which you don't find as much in European cultures, and you don't find as much in Japanese or Chinese cultures, and maybe you don't find it as much anywhere. I don't know. But I do believe that there's still some retention of that historical personality that America has. Now, I realize that's not very local, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the internet has put us in such a position that culture is dispersing out and becoming a lot less localized. I think part of this is maybe a verbal mistake of not seeing the the internet as a space or a place, because that is part of the influence. We can't help but be influenced by the places we are in. We soak up our environment like sponges. I just see that the internet is a way in which culture has perhaps become more homogenized. Although I'm not truly convinced that it has become just more homogenized. It does seem that there's a lot of America and consumerism going around. But I also am well aware of the trend that culture has become much more deeply fragmented. And so people have access to culture which feeds their own little monkey. And so what I see in that is the trend of people getting drawn into their own personalities. And this is different than locality, and it's different than cultural harmony. I would really like to find a way for us to figure out what to do with locality again, because it's a tough nut to crack. I'm not sure what the role of locality is. Once upon a time, it seems like locality was what gave you roots. And so when you would continue with the tradition of your culture, you would reach deep into your locality, and then you would just walk it one or two steps forward. And I do think that that process has been extinguished, or at least mightily confused, because the traditions that we had were not equipped to deal with the problems that we have. And so where they're applicable still, they only pertain in the loosest, most general ways. Of course, I think it is a choice, and will continue to be a choice, for people to exit the problems of modernity and choose to live like older humans. I don't believe that that is a choice that will bring wholeness, but I think for some people that's the way they're supposed to be going, and they'll have lots to teach us they'll have lots to teach modern people who get so battered that they need to go back and get some wisdom from the old local ways. Well, not so much wisdom as rehabilitation, because I do believe wisdom is of the times and rehabilitation has a specific function. This is the last thing I'm going to say on it. I do think that locality, physical locality, has become more important in a way because we are so much on our screens. There's maybe a heightened value to the scarcity of real space. And so I just know that there's something to solving the locality problem that you're interested in. I just don't know. I don't know how you can square it with what's going on in the network now. Okay, next question. I don't have an exact question yet on this, but I just want you to talk about food. Maybe you can try making a loaf of bread and talk about it. I love this question. It's evident that you don't think I've ever made food in my life. The most important thing about food is its purity. I love the way that food can connect you to the earth. That's all nerds. Okay, what do I really think about food? I really do enjoy cooking. You know, about a year ago, I realized that all of human roles can be seen as being on a continuum, where on one end you have philosophy, and then on the other end you have cooking. And I realized that if you're a cook, by becoming a better and better philosopher, your cooking gets better and better. And if you're a philosopher, by becoming a better and better cook, your philosophy gets better. And the advantage of being a philosopher is that you realize this, and the advantage of being a cook is that you don't. I mean, I think it's fascinating how food can enter you as a variety of sources, and somehow it all comes out as you. I mean to say that I can eat Nerds and Kit Kats and bananas and bread, and it all gets converted into Jake's cells. I think that conversion process is astounding. I do think that, like many people say, that working in a garden, even for a little bit, can produce a deeper appreciation for nature. And I wish that if I could have two totalitarian wishes, it would maybe be that people, when they were becoming adults, they had to spend maybe a month of time working in a garden and a month of time meditating in a monastery or something like that. Recently, I started saying grace before every meal because the scarcity of food and its importance started to become really clear to me. You know, you're only ever as far as a few meals away from being nothing. Like, imagine that. That's how precarious the situation is. Food is you, you are food, Hakuna Matata. Also, if you're an ex-drug addict, I mean, what else do you have but food? I guess just philosophy. All right, y'all. I'm out on this one. Thanks for the questions, Lucy. And if anyone has any more questions, put them in the comments and I'll make a response video giving the worst answers to your best questions. Take care.